We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Qonnect, everyone. We've got a great program for you today. My name is Lindsay Winthrop, and I'm the community manager here at Qumulo, and I'll be acting as your host for the next few hours. If you don't already know who Qumulo is, no worries. We'll be providing some insight here just in a few minutes. And whether you're new or you've been a customer for a few years, make sure to listen closely because we're going to put your Qumulo knowledge to the test in a fun Kahoot game where you can win some great prizes if you land at the top of the scoreboard. And that's just the start. We are thrilled to have Brandon Middleton from AWS with us here today to talk about why Qumulo and AWS are better together, followed by a demo so you can see it in action. And after that, you'll be hearing from a few of our beloved customers, Blue Ant Media and Atomic Cartoons. Customer testimonials are my absolute favorite, so I cannot wait to hear what they have to say. And to finish up with some fun, we'll wrap up the program with one final round of Kahoot. Now, before we get started, we do have a few important things to note. First things first, please stay on mute throughout the event. While we always love to hear from you, we want to ensure that we don't miss a single word from any one of our exciting presenters today. Second, we do value transparency around here. So I'm letting you all know that we will be recording throughout the day. Third, use the chat feature to ask any questions you have along the way, making sure to direct it both to the panelists and attendees. And lastly, and most importantly, don't act like a grumquat, Qumulo's moody mascot. Enjoy yourself and have some fun. So with all that being said, let's dive in. To kick things off, we're going to start off with Who's Qumulo, presented by Brian Mitchell, a senior systems engineer from Atlanta, Georgia, who just celebrated its 3-year anniversary. He is known for building relationships and providing customers confidence that Qumulo solutions will deliver the business outcomes they need to succeed. It's no secret that Brian's a whiz with hands-on demos as well, so don't hesitate to reach out to him after the event to set up a time to sync. So with that being said, Brian, I'm going to hand the mic over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hey, everyone. Does this, or even this look like your file data before Qumulo was deployed? Well, if you said yes to any of those questions, you're in the right place. Hello, my friends. I'm Brian Mitchell, one of your solutions architects here at Qumulo. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with me today. For the next few moments, we'll answer that age-old question of who is Qumulo, with a few real-life customer stories and some humor. Now, I was also told there may be a quiz with prizes involved. So remember, friends, if you hear me repeat something, make a mental note. Ready? Let's go. Who is Qumulo? Sure, Qumulo is radical simplicity for file data. But what does that really mean? It means you can store petabytes of data on-prem and in the cloud with dynamic scaling in a single namespace. 2, manage those namespaces with real-time analytics that gives you insight into every single file and user. 3, build those automated workflows with comprehensive API support across Windows, Mac, and Linux. Here's the way we think about your data lifecycle. You ingest directly from applications for every type of data, such as feature film productions, dense imagery, sensor data, geospatial data, even genetic sequencing operations. Multiple users can read and write data and transform that data across protocols, locations, applications. Then you can publish that across various regions, all on Linux, Mac, or Windows. Finally, you can archive and keep that data forever, all on the Qumulo file data platform. But what does Qumulo really mean to you, your projects, and your customers? On a side note, hopefully someone out there has customers that are palace guards, robots, even superheroes. So what does Qumulo mean to you? Let's start with your weekends. I know some of you run upgrades and maintenance during the weekends. We believe you should never spend your weekend doing upgrades. I recently spoke with a customer that said upgrades take forever and a day. With Qumulo instant software upgrades, we have customers that say upgrades take less than 30 seconds. In fact, one customer recently said upgrades were too easy on Qumulo. Customer went from babysitting those upgrades on weekends to doing what he loves, barbecuing in his backyard with friends and family. Next up, low-level storage provisioning. We have a Fortune 100 customer here that recently said, look, I want my team out of the low-level storage provisioning business. I want them working on a strategic project that actually helps move the business forward. Now, they're pushing payloads to create and manage end-user workspaces with a self-service portal, all powered by Qumulo APIs, 100% automation, truly automation anywhere. Okay, chat, time for a poll question. In the Zoom chat, type number 1 if you've ever had a support case where they've said, may I close your case? Or for you comedians out there, type number 2 if you've personally said that to an end user. All right, awesome, good stuff, good stuff. Yeah, it's true, right? The job of most enterprise storage support is to close those cases as quickly as possible. But Qumulo, there is no more, what's your case number, or have you plugged it and plugged it back in? In fact, we don't even have a support department. That's so reactive. We're proactive here at Qumulo. We have tier 3 customer success managers and engineers. Just like this customer said, it's like an Apple unboxing experience. In fact, our recent NPS score of 91 validates that. So we've talked about what Qumulo means to you, getting your weekends back, getting out of the low-level storage provisioning business, and no more support cases that takes days to resolve. Next up, your projects. Most of our customers have multiple flavors of Windows, Mac OS, Linux running in the environment. Yet for years, those legacy file platforms have struggled with basic interoperability for SMB shares and NFS exports. The good news here is Qumulo changes the game when it comes to permissions with cross-protocol permissions, or XPP. That enables you to have mixed SMB and NFS protocol workflows while preserving those ACLs and POSIX mode bits. Plus, get this, it's enabled by default out of the box. Pretty neat, eh? Security, top of mind these days. How do you know your data is secure from attacks? There's a lot of challenges here. Understanding compliance regulations, knowing what to encrypt versus the performance trade-offs, even third-party applications and key management systems. They're very complex and very expensive. So we built Qumulo Secure. This is AES 256 software-based encryption, gang. It's data at rest encryption. We use automated encryption keys at no additional cost and no additional setup. Did I mention? No additional cost. All right, here's a fun project. Imagine your leadership says, we have a mandate to go to the cloud. Great, where do we get started? Well, for some legacy file platforms, this is their version of cloud. In other words, they park an on-prem appliance in a colo with a direct connect to a hyperscaler like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. Is that really cloud native? No way, I think not. What happens if you want to transition that workflow from, say, one region to another region? More appliances for this, quote, cloud. Definitely not cloud. Not only can you install Qumulo software everywhere on-prem and in the cloud, but we even have built-in cloud-native hooks, like Qumulo Shift for file to S3 objects. CloudWatch monitoring that auto-restarts instances, and even Lambda functions for volume recovery. Speaking of cloud, don't forget, stay tuned. Right up is our AWS demo with Keith and Dack. Awesome. So Qumulo means your projects have multi-protocol permissions, encryption, and a path to the cloud. Great. Finally, let's talk about your customers, your internal customers. How many times have you heard, why are things so slow? Now you can stop that finger pointing and really get on with your work. How so? With built-in analytics that update in real time. One customer recently told us, we love Qumulo because it gives us the ability to drill down and look out exactly what's happening, all the way to the file level. Traditional RAIs, they don't have that granularity. With Qumulo, let's say there's a problem with an edit workstation, they can pinpoint that and say that it's a compute issue. That's fantastic. So here's one, a big one, efficiency. Imagine buying 3/4 of a car, no trunk, no back seat. That's like a lot of traditional file services platforms. They say don't push it past 85, 90% full capacity. Otherwise, performance will tank. Good news here is with Qumulo, you can use 100% of that capacity at peak performance. even with petabytes of data, billions of files, millions of operations, and thousands of users. For example, we have a customer in Hollywood. They run a render farm for a major motion picture project. They use Qumulo to shuffle data in and out of that at 95% plus capacity. Post-production completes on time and zero challenges, even running at 95+% full. Finally, time to results. We recently heard a story from a decision maker at a Fortune 500 company. The DBA team, they were previously running a typical SAP HANA backup with their 20-node traditional NFS export. Previously, they said it took 24 hours to complete. With Qumulo, it takes them 4 hours to finish that job. So, gang, this is Qumulo for you, your projects, and your customers. Now it's your turn, friends. What does Qumulo mean to you? Feel free to post a few answers in the chat. I'll be on the lookout for them. Now, let's have some fun. What do you think, Lindsay?
Thank you so much, Bryden. Fun? Is that even a question? Of course we're going to have fun. Love it. So as I mentioned before, we will be using Kahoot for this awesome Qumulo quiz we have in store for you. For those of you who haven't played Kahoot before, you can join in using a web browser on your mobile device or desktop. Don't worry about installing the app. Once there, enter in the number code on the screen and you're good to go. Keep in mind that your final score is based not only on your correct answers, but the speed of your responses. Good luck and may the odds be ever in your favor. So we will give it a few minutes for people to join here. Excellent. We're getting a lot of people in there. This should be really fun. All right, we're going to give everyone about 30 more seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, let's start the quiz. Question 1. What color is the Qumulo Grumquat? Purple, pink, orange, or blue? Select your answer now. All right, he's orange. Great job. All right, where can you install Qumulo software? The cloud, Qumulo hardware, OEM hardware, or all of the above? Excellent job, everyone. Yeah, all of the above, got it right. How much does Qumulo's encryption at rest cost? 10% more, 20% more, 42% more, or nothing? It's free. Yep. You guys are really listening to Brian. Love to see those answers coming in. And now we have a true or false. Qumulo is multi-protocol. Yep, true. It's a tight race between those front runners. What percentage of usable data should you be able to use? 100, 91, 80, or 50? Couldn't agree more. 100%. All right. Third place. Second place, Joshua Murray. And first, Brian. Great job, everyone. Love seeing all those answers come on in. Congratulations here to our top 3 winners. We're going to be sending some great gift cards your way after the event, so be sure to be on the lookout. Congratulations. All right. So now that we've finished up the Kahoot game, I want to give a very warm welcome to Brandon Middleton from AWS, who's here with us today. Thank you so much for joining us today, Brandon. I will hand the mic over to you if you're all ready to go.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Lindsay, for the introduction. Just mic check. Can everybody hear my audio okay?
Yes.
Doing well?
Brandon, thank you.
All right, perfect. So just to introduce myself, my name is Brandon Middleton. I'm based here in the Bay Area, a little bit south of Oakland here in California. Hope you guys are having a great day weather-wise. If not, I'll be sending some virtual sunshine to you guys. My job during the day is to work with startup companies here in the Bay Area and abroad, and to help them along their cloud journey using the AWS cloud services and also our vast partner ecosystem. So Qumulo is a great example of a great AWS partner as well. So just wanted to do a couple of minutes of just level setting and say that I work with all 175 plus services that we have. So customers are doing some very, very interesting things with technology these days across many different verticals and many different industries, from financial services to healthcare, life sciences to software and internet. There's so many different opportunities to be able to leverage technology to change the world, actually. So I argue that I have the best job in the world with a lot of my peers and teammates, because I literally get to geek out and help customers reach forward and realize their vision for whatever their business is. So outside of work, I enjoy golfing, basketball, and soccer were in my past when I was a little bit younger. I've got 3 young children that can't wait to get out of the house and get back to school as normal. And outside of that, I do a little bit of teaching within the School of Engineering at Stanford University here right up the street. So yeah, thanks for having me. So I appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak to you all, and looking forward to a great conversation here.
Excellent, Brandon. Again, thank you so much for being here. We would really love for the audience to hear directly from AWS about why Qumulo and AWS are better together.
Yeah, sure thing. So, obviously AWS has a big portfolio of native storage solutions that we offer on top of our platform. The maintenance of the partner ecosystem that I mentioned is the way that we can grow and scale to the numbers of customers that are interested in changing the way that they operate and serving their customers better. So yeah, we really feel like Qumulo has a great offering and is doing some really groundbreaking work to make things simpler for you as solution architects, as operators, as developers. I'm going back into my past about 15 years ago, where I actually worked in a team that had pager duty, where I needed to carry a pager, and sometimes at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. I'd get a call and say I had to go to the data center to swap out a failed drive or to restart a process. So this is actually very personal to me. Previous to the business development work that I do now, I lived and breathed a lot of what you all are living and breathing today on the networking side, on the storage side, and on the compute side. So being able to successfully drive these outcomes for our customers is the most important thing for us, and the ability to do that with partners is the easiest way for us to scale out and make that happen. So Well, a long answer to your question, but a little bit of background is helpful probably for everybody to understand why our partnership is so special.
Oh, I will never be mad at a long answer. And let's be real, at PagerDuty, those are days you never forget, to be honest. So yeah, thank you for sharing those details. And yeah, speaking of customers, like where are you finding, where does AWS in particular see Qumulo bringing the most value to the customer base in general?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different areas when we think about storage just as a class of services. A lot of people on the call are probably familiar with S3. And one thing that I really like about Qumulo is your ability to get the broad level, so the high level about all of the different things that are happening, but be able to also granularly click into detail and understand the trends, understand the amounts of data moving into and out of production, on the ability to do kind of the metadata tagging to give your developers a sense of what's going on, to give your operators, to give your security admins a sense of what's going on. And the ability to, assign privileges is something that's also important to make sure that audit trails and traceability and things like that are buttoned up so that you're not giving too much access where you don't need to. So those are a couple of things that I'm really excited about when I look at the Qumulo product. And we're seeing Qumulo help customers accelerate their cloud migrations and their digital transformation initiatives by allowing them to really, really easily lift and shift their NAS dependent workflows from their data centers into a hybrid fashion. And then from a hybrid fashion, sometimes they're going all in to AWS if that's the easiest solution to what their current challenge is. So, where customers can take advantage of our AWS Elastic Compute portfolio and the other broad services that are able to be leveraged once data is in the cloud. So I'm talking about stuff like AI and ML services, some pretty cool analytics services, and just use cases that are available to you when your data is able to flow a little bit more freely than just being put into data centers. That's really what it's all about for us. And one of the things that, again, I'm really, really excited about our partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So you did highlight on the simplicity of moving file data dependent workloads to the cloud with Qumulo. Could you expand a little bit more on those services that customers can access once they move to AWS?
Yeah, sure thing. So Qumulo's integration with like AWS S3, for example, we recently celebrated the 15th anniversary of S3 recently here at AWS. So definitely one of the oldest services, one of the first ones that we shipped actually as AWS was getting started. But if you were to take that specific service, S3, and look at, Qumulo's shift feature, for example, that gives customers the ability to move their file data into S3 in like the native format so that there's no need for you to do any transformation or to write any scripts that moves around the data. It's in its native format. And when it's sitting in an S3 bucket in that format, then the other things that I mentioned, like being able to, shift that data over to an AI and ML service, or being able to go and dump that data into an enterprise data warehouse and get some analytics and insights off of that. All that's really, really simple. And the fact that you don't have to ask your developers to write any extra code or do any extra things because they've, got a plate full of tasks already. It's great when you don't have to ask your team to do extra stuff. So that's one of the things that's most exciting that I'd say, and really excited to see what the future roadmap for Shift is going to look like. But across our compute services, our ML and AI services, and even our like transcoding services, there's a bunch of video and media and entertainment companies that are doing some really, really interesting things in the space. So hopefully that's a good high level view of what's available at this point, but the future is bright, and we've just literally got the tip of the iceberg that's showing right now with so much opportunity underneath the surface.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. So any last thoughts for our attendees today while you're here?
No, I really enjoyed the time so far. Kick butt in the Kahoot games that are coming, I'm sure. Pay attention. And yeah, as it pertains to anything AWS related, if you've got questions, we aim to be one of the most customer obsessed companies in the world. So if you've ever got any questions or any feedback, we're open to it. And a good amount of the roadmap and things that we release are straight from you. 85 to 90% of what we deliver to the market is directly from customer feedback. So I'd encourage everybody to reach out. Don't be a stranger. Be safe, be well, and thanks so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Brandon, for being here. Just sharing your expertise and your time with us today. It was invaluable. So I know I speak for all of us when I say it was an absolute pleasure having you. So thanks again. All right. So now that we've heard about Qumulo and AWS together, let's see it in action with the demo. Dack, are you out there by chance?
I'm here, Lindsay. Thank you very much.
Excellent. All right. So I can't wait to see what you guys have in store for us. So I'm going to hand the mic to you and Keith.
Thank you. Next slide. So just a quick agenda for this segment. We'll review the demo environment that we've spun up in AWS and you'll be seeing here today. In the process of doing that, we will show the population of the CloudFormation template, the building of the infrastructure. We'll quickly review the infrastructure, then I'll hand off to Keith, who will take you through the Qumulo UI, as well as the demo and the performance metrics. So what are we demoing here today? A Qumulo cluster on the far right of this diagram, consisting of those 10 C5N18X large instances, along with the EBS volumes that underpin it, as well as the sidecar that monitors that cluster in totality, both sending metrics to CloudWatch, as well as monitoring EBS volumes for failures and automatic replacements. To the left of the cluster, still in the private subnet, you see 100 clients, 50 Linux clients, 50 Windows clients. So this is a multi-protocol test, as Brian mentioned, our multi-protocol capabilities previously. So that's a quick review of what the demo environment looks like. What we'll be spinning up and showing you CloudFormation building is specifically the cluster and all the well-architected components that surround it, like sidecar, SNS, and sending metrics to CloudWatch, resource groups that we built, so on and so forth. So next slide. Okay, let's kick off the template. We'll drop in our URL from S3 here. We'll give the template a name, a stack name, if you will, a bucket that this template is sitting in, the prefix for the bucket, a key pair, standard stuff in AWS. Pick a VPC. We are deploying in an existing VPC. We'll make sure that the security group we're deploying for Qumulo matches the CIDR of the VPC so that the cluster can talk to both private and public subnets within the VPC. Pick a private subnet ID. We're going to skip public management for this cluster. But to make this template happy, we do need to populate the public subnet ID just to make the parser happy. Next, we will configure the Route 53 private hosted zone option. So here we're going to give it a fully qualified domain name for our private hosted zone. This is so we can have A records for all of our floating IPs for IP failover. And we'll give those A records a name of just demo. So demo.qumulo.com is the UNC path to the cluster. Pick an OMI ID. Now the cool stuff, pick our instance type, C5N18, 10 nodes, and then our disk config per node. In this case, we're going to go with 8 terabyte all flash. So 10 nodes, 8 TB each, 80 TB total. We'll give the cluster a name. We'll keep 3 floating IPs per node, and we'll drop in a customer managed key. It's your data, you own it, so you certainly can use your own customer managed key as we showed there in that last step. Just a note on those floating IPs, those are EC2 secondary IP addresses that we then take over management of. And what you see as the stack kicks off here is the first thing we do is kick off a Qumulo IAM stack. These are nested stacks within the master template. That IAM stack is configuring IAM profiles so the cluster can take over command and control of those EC2 secondary IP addresses and manage what nodes have what IP addresses. We're also kicking off a secret stack here. This is storing the sidecar username and password, another best practice. Next up is the Qumulo stack, Q stack it's called. This is building the 10 node cluster. So those are 10 C5N 18X large instances, as well as 16 EBS GP2 volumes per node for a total of 160 volumes. Along the process here in this stack, all the ENIs are being built, as well as tagging for the instances. And next is the sidecar stack. This is 2 Lambda functions. One, sending metrics to CloudWatch for both EC2 metrics as well as EBS metrics. The other is a, I'm drawing a blank at the moment, folks. Sorry. Metrics and EBS volume monitoring. So we have a Lambda function constantly monitoring the EBS volumes that is checking to see if there is a failure. It looks like a disk failure, and then we automatically replace that volume, respecting that customer managed key. You see the provisioning stack pop up here. That is configuring the cluster with the sidecar username, password, as well as the floating IPs that were assigned in the Qumulo stack previously. It also is tagging up our EBS volumes so we can subsequently build resource groups to make CloudWatch easy to filter on. And you see the last 2 stacks, CloudWatch stack and a DNS stack. That DNS stack's building Route 53 A records in a private hosted zone, as well as the CloudWatch stack, we're building resource groups, one for EC2 and one for the EBS volumes within the cluster. Again, so that it's easy for you to look at CloudWatch and see your stats for EC2 and EBS that are relevant to the cluster. No pollution from other stuff in your account. Okay, it is deployed. Let's take a look at what got spun up. Here you see an EC2 console, 10 nodes, and you see the provisioning node is stopped. It has done its job. It's spun up, banged in those configurations I mentioned, and then automatically shut down. So everything looks good here. Next, we'll look at our EBS volumes. You see all your EBS volumes are tagged and also tagged with type GP2. And if we scroll to the right, you will see the customer managed key that we dropped in before that ended in 1EE. All of those volumes are encrypted with that customer managed key. Again, it's your data. Use your key if you so choose. We'll scroll through the 160 volumes just to show you that they're all there. And then bump over here to IAM. You see there are 4 IAM roles created. And next is the secret stack. Here you see the secret stack that was created for sidecar username and password if you should ever want to refer back to it. Next is the Lambda functions. You see a metrics and a disk recovery Lambda. We'll just check one, the metrics Lambda quickly. We'll look at the monitoring view and just make sure that this Lambda function is happy. We'll drop to a 1 hour view on this top right graph in your view. And you see the green line at the top, the red line at the bottom. That Lambda function's happy. It's talking to the cluster. Finally, over here in Route 53, you see the 30 A records, 3 per node. Those are EC2 secondary IPs, 10 nodes, 30 in total, plus 2 for an SOA and an NS record. Route 53 is up, configured, and looks good. Finally, our resource groups. We created a resource group for the cluster Here we'll show an EC2 filtered view of that resource group for both the EC2 instances and the ENIs on them. Next is the EBS volumes. So remember those 160 volumes, 10 per page here. This resource group was built with those EBS tags we created. So I'll hand off to Keith now, who will walk you through the cluster and show you the clusters view now that it's up and the infrastructure is happy. Keith?
Thanks, Dack. So you can see I'm just logging into the cluster right now. This is the main dashboard, but before we actually go through our dashboard, I'm going to look over here to the network configuration section. Dack just showed the Route 53 DNS entries. What you'll see here is that we actually have all of the 10 nodes in the cluster. You'll see Qumulo Q1 through 10, and they each have 1 persistent and 3 floating. What the floating addresses allow us to do is if a node should fail, those addresses will float across to all the other nodes so that no disconnects happen. But you'll also notice is that we configured these to have 16 drives, all SSDs. This was part of the CFT template that Dack was building in the AWS console. And you'll notice the drives are all about 550 gigabytes. When we configured it, it was all in terabytes. That's the total cluster. The other piece that we configured was the sidecar user. This is a local user on the cluster that we have created specifically for that Lambda functionality or that microservice. And then what we've done as part of the template is also create a role. So Qumulo allows for roles-based administration, and we created a role for that sidecar user that's now mapped to that individual user. So if I click in here and go to the actual permissions that that user gets, there are 4 specific roles or user groups that that user gets. This allows us to send telemetry information over to CloudWatch. So this is really the deployment of that CloudFormation template. So if we come back to the actual dashboard, what you'll notice is this is a brand new cluster, and we just started writing. So Dack showed that we had 100 clients, 50 Windows clients and 50 Linux clients. You'll see that the data is being written into the cluster, and we are, this is a brand new, so, we talked about 100% usable. It's not 100% full right now, but you can use all 63 terabytes of this cluster, 64 to be exact. And the nice part about Qumulo is it's real-time visibility. So I'm going to scroll into the timescale here and come down. We are spinning up a whole bunch of data writing to the cluster. So keep an eye on the right-hand menu over here where it says IOPS, throughput, and latency. I'm going to move my cursor up over this, and you're going to start to see the writes go up. And if I back off, you'll see that if I close the window in a little bit more and get a little bit more granular, you'll see that we're going to start writing, and we already have, and it's already writing data in at 17 gigabytes per second. This is a brand new system that we are actively writing data into both over NFS and SMB. And you'll see that we are throwing a ton of throughput at this. Now, one of the things that's really cool to know about Qumulo, and over time, this becomes even more interesting, but you can see what your read and write distributions are on the cluster. So right now we're doing all write, and you can see that right now in the last hour or the last few minutes, we're actually doing all of our current 14 gigabytes of throughput. But you'll see that we also can show you how many clients are connected. So there's a total of 101, 50 Linux, 50 Windows, and then me connected to the cluster over Windows gives you 101 clients. And you see the breakdown. We've done a pretty good job of balancing across. This is all DNS in the cloud that AWS gives us. The other thing you'll notice here is that not only do you show the clients and their connectivity, but you can see what the top clients are. So which of my clients is reading the most, which of my clients is writing the most. Over time, this last piece, capacity trends, will start to fill. The default is 72 hours, but since we haven't really written any data into the cluster, that's not actively going to be showing anything. So if I come back up here, you'll see in real time, we're writing all this data across, and you'll notice that there's little peaks and valleys. And what this actually shows us is that there's a whole bunch of clients writing up, and then some of them are tailing off and some of them are spinning back up. So you can see that as we do all of the writes, you start to see a lot of the activity on the main dashboard. But more importantly, Qumulo gives you instant visibility. So when I click on the root directory here in integrated analytics, you see the number of files that have been written, the top clients by activity, and you can see that all of the data is being written into this Qumulo demo directory. And I know it's all write throughput because of the candy striped green line underneath the Qumulo demo. And I can see all of the individual files by path on the left-hand side. Now, in a much more populated cluster, what you would see here is your throughput hotspots. The hotspot isn't like the disk hotspot, it's the hottest section in your file system, which in this case, from an IOPS perspective and a throughput perspective, is the Qumulo demo directory. What's really cool is now I can start to see each of my clients. So if you were to spin up an actual real world workload here, you can now identify what your clients are doing, who's the most throughput intensive client, which application has the most intensive clients doing writes or reads. And a lot of times you can start to identify the bottlenecks in your workloads. And more importantly, in the cloud, you're paying on $1 per terabyte, penny per gigabyte, whatever it is. And you can now start to see exactly what's happening. Now, this view that I just switched to is activity by path. You can now start to see each individual application or group of applications and who's reading and writing from them. And as I said, this is all write throughput. So it's really cool to see your writes, but most of the time you write that data in once and then you're going to read it all back. So the real power of Qumulo isn't just in our write throughput. We're going to show you some really high performance reads, because a lot of the workloads that you start to see in the cloud are all write it in and then read it back, do your transformation of that data. So as the writes scale down here, you'll notice that we're now doing about 271 megabytes per second. This is a real quick time before the reads kick in. A lot of our customers are taking advantage of Qumulo in the cloud for 3 to 4 major reasons, but the 2 biggest ones are the ability to do multi-protocol access. There aren't really any good file tools in the cloud that allow you to do multi-protocol access. And a lot of workloads on-prem that are moving to the cloud require, Windows to write the data, NFS to do your data transformation, and then Windows to read back. And in Qumulo running in AWS gives you that very scalable system that can drive very high performance in big namespaces. And I don't mean like 100 terabytes, or in this case, 64. I'm talking like half a petabyte, multi-petabytes, up to tens of petabytes in a single namespace with multi-protocol. That is the power of what Qumulo does. And when you start thinking about our customers that have very high throughput requirements, what you start to see is the writes are important, but the reads are even more important. We have some customers that are using us for a rendering service where their customers send them media and entertainment clips and footage and finished work that they need rendered. And the render is a high read. And what we're about to do now is spin up 100 clients now that all of the writes have finished. And we are going to go read all of this data back instantly, right? So as you'll see in about 5 seconds, because they're all kicking off right now, all of the reads are going to start to pile up. And you will immediately see a spike on this real-time chart. So keep an eye on the throughput and my cursor, because it's about to spike any second now. And while that's happening, here it goes. So we got a couple clients spinning up, and here comes the big pull. All right, we just went from 400 to 5.8 gig. It's really important to understand that what Qumulo can do in the cloud is, in a 10 node system, is unrivaled from a throughput perspective. We're now doing 25 gigabytes of read across both Windows and Linux. And you'll see that, this is a very high performing system. This is only 10 nodes. Granted, it is all flash, but there are not many systems that can do file-based reads and writes, multi-protocol at 25 gigabytes per second in the cloud. Now, I'm going to just scroll down here real quick, and you're going to see when we were doing all the writes, you saw the current was 14 gig on the right side. You'll now see that our number of clients are now doing 3% of all of our data has been written in, and it's all done at this 23 gigabytes per second. So this is like high performance read and write in the cloud. Just a couple of other workloads to kind of talk about as we do this. I'm going to just comb over here now. Before, you'll remember it was all green candy stripe lines and solid green IOPS. Now you'll see this is all the read throughput. This is all happening in real time as we go through this. And you see the clients and the files that they're now reading. But some of our clients that are using us in the cloud are not just the M&E space. We have customers who are doing genomic analysis, where they take their sequences and they write them up to the cloud into a Qumulo cluster, and then their genomic pipeline begins. And that's really where the throughput is really needed. So you can see now it went from green to purple because all of our throughput in the Qumulo demo directory is all in read activity. But the throughput and the IOPS that they need is allowing them to take time that's universally stuck on-prem and adjust it in the cloud. And this is a really cool feature I wanted to show off, is that you can come in here and see all of your files. You can actually hover over and see the ACLs. And this is the trends. Now on the main dashboard, you can't see it, but when you come into our capacity trend service, you can see exactly how much data was grown in an hour slice and where it was all written. So you can actually account for how much capacity is being written into your system, how much data is going in, and where's it actually growing. I'm just going to come back here and let you guys look at 24 gigabytes per second of read throughput while I finish up my story about some of our customers. And then the last thing, well, we'll flip over while I talk about this, is that all the metrics that we configured through CloudWatch are here. So we had shown the filtering on 2 different resource groups that we built as part of the template, one for EC2 and the last one for EBS. So the cluster is actually sending all of this data through that Lambda service that we call Sidecar, and it's populating into CloudWatch. There was a question by Michael earlier about our ability to go in and do integration with the other cloud tools. This is the integration you'll see right there. So we can kind of get past the demo here and just summarize this, is that Qumulo gives you very easy to use insight, multi-protocol, and high performance in the cloud for file use.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Keith and Dack. That was great. Now on to my favorite part of Qonnect, the testimonials from our customers, the lifeblood of Qumulo. Let's give a warm welcome to Kyle from Blue Ant Media. Thank you so much for being here today, Kyle. Are you all set to go?
I hope so, Lindsay. Thank you.
I can't wait. Thanks so much again. Look forward to it.
All right. Hi, as Lindsay mentioned, I am Kyle Spooner. I work at Blue Ant Media, which is a Toronto-based media company. So I've been here for 5-6 years. But some of you say, well, what is Blue Ant Media? Like, what does a media company mean? Well, we're in many facets. Like, we have linear TV channel playouts such as Love Nature, Make Film, BBC Earth. Cottage Life, which is encompassment of TV, magazine, and even a consumer show, and the baby shows and season shows by that for kind of a niche audience. We're Mobile Syrup, a Canadian tech blog review site, like one of the more read ones in Canada about iPhones, Xboxes, all that stuff. But we're also Productions, where we have animation, Saloon Media, which is currently doing Canada's Drag Race. They worked on some Amazons and Netflix and stuff for CNN. Beach House Pictures in Singapore for all that nature and children stuff. And then there's Blue Ant Plus, which has been described to me as it takes a company or brand and creates a campaign out of that. Branded storytelling, like Rome New Roads, where Canon will come to them and say, hey, we have an idea or we want you to help us make an idea to sell us. And that's kind of what we are publicly. Internally, there's a machine that just has to roll it all. We have sales teams that sell all these scripted contents. We have selling it locally and domestically in Canada. They're at MIP right now selling it globally. And then we have a media services team as well in Master Control that are playing it out to channels, as well as they're creating those files to deliver for those international items. That's who Blue Ant Media is. But what happened? Like, why did we even look at Qumulo? In essence, Blue Ant started as a very small company. It started from a couple mergers, but we grew too big, too fast. Originally, it was Hi-Fi and Glassbox merged together. They became a company. They bought Cottage Life, they bought Saloon, they bought all these other facets. And that, in addition with natural department growth and the trying times of storage, everything goes up. We were like the forerunners of HD content in Canada back in the hi-fi days. They dabbled in 3D, 4K, HDR. We're dabbling in 8K now. So some of you guys know, if you know storage, it balloons. In the early days, one of the initial solutions was called the Octopus. This was a LaCie cube, those big silver boxes, about 5-10 terabytes. This became 2 cubes. That became 4 cubes. And it all turned into what they called the Octopus, a rat's nest of daisy chain LaCies sitting on multiple shafts in a data center in about 2013-14, counting about 50 to 100 terabytes. That drove us to get a Isilon node, 200 to 300 terabytes, nothing crazy, NL series archive. They thought that would last forever. It lasted 2 years before alternative arrangements were needed. And when that filled, we knew we needed more storage. Like, obviously, this is getting crazy. Where do we do with it? So one department thought at the time, as they were managing storage, S3 could be an archive solution. As Brandon mentioned, let's put it all in the cloud. Brandon, I'm sorry, it probably would have been a much better outlook if we were working with you there. What they pitched and what they implemented, this internal team, it wasn't what it was. It was just dump it in S3 and not understand what people were doing with it. So the constant egress, ingress, egress, all the lifecycle rules never kicked in because it was used too much. At this point, we were now pushing about 500, 600 terabytes, and most of that was in the cloud. So the next thing that happened is, that started getting retreated back. It fell back under IT, and we needed to look at ways to get it back on site. So we did something called a STAS model. This is in essence a lease price per gigabyte model, where similar to S3, it's, you pay per usage. However, this was directly attached to our network. And we were told it would scale and every department could use it, attaches to our networks. And this kind of helped, because at this point we had hard drives floating around, legacy tape, LTO, S3, it was just everywhere. And we're about a petabyte at this point. Like, this is only from 2011 to 2016. So stuff balloons up, stuff goes. And that's what happens. In essence, though, these were still leased. We didn't own them. We paid for our usage, and it was our own storage. It wasn't shared performance. But as with the model, it was still growing pains. Since it was lented, we couldn't buy licensing for it. We couldn't do stuff. So when I said, here's a petabyte, every single department could see a petabyte. And they're like, oh, we have a petabyte. Not one department, though, 10 departments. And everybody just started dumping stuff in there. It was a free-for-all. Managing data use became an issue too. As you had dumped more and more data in there, performance gets affected. It's hard to do it when you have 1 petabyte, 2 petabyte. It could be millions and millions of files. Stuff slows down. And as we went from 1 to 2, 2 to 2.5, and now we're sitting about 3 petabytes, it becomes a thing. So why Qumulo? Well, when we approached the 3 petabyte mark, which we have crossed, and we pulled back, so we wanted to bring our ownership back and holistically look at this, because we reached it's cheaper to buy at this moment. Like, the amount we're paying would have paid for storage, some sort of storage at this point. Maybe not top tier that we knew at the time of Isilon, but some sort of storage. So now that's back in our hands. We knew the growth, and you guys are obvious that. So we drilled it into 3 key items that kind of needed cohesion to be in a working triangle. 1, we needed some sort of media asset management to help control all these different raw data versions, edited versions, files, and be a front end to link all the data to our customers, or our users in this case, so internally. So instead of going to file folders and duplicates here, and here, there's only one file, they know where to get it. 2, we needed a means to archive, to properly control raw assets, cold needs, and push them off to archive material, whether it's spinning disk, cloud, or LTO via the systems instead of users. I'm briefly looking at the right at the chat. Somebody says legacy tape. We do use LTO. The amount of data and raw data that's happening is, at this moment, we use LTO 7M to store it. So we do use it. And 3, though, we need storage. And that stats was fine, but we needed something reliable that could scale with us, that we owned, and also has the performance and the support to work together in all 3 of these. Bit of a kind of a quirk. This was September 2013 when we came to this point, and you know what happened in 2020. So to support these pillars, though, we need the storage we own, and we need it to work. We couldn't just uplift 3 petabytes at once, so we wanted to explore alternatives that would work. And actually, it was my boss who brought up Qumulo. He's mentioned to them in the past at former companies, and they seemed like a good fit. Lean underdog, nice to work with, and all that stuff. So to me, it was like, it looks good. We knew we wanted to start the storage routine to scale, and it was an OpEx model. So with this, working with them and talking to them, we figured out to sell with K144s to start, and we started slow. We bought 6 nodes, about half a petabyte of storage just to start, a little over. The reason we chose these is, it's still kind of it was still baby steps at the time to come in. So we chose them for the archive rate. We were in essence using these to possibly replace NL series Isilon's archive nodes. But they were told us they were performant enough for day-to-day work as well. So we chose them to kind of do a little bit of testing on day-to-day workflows, as well as push them a little bit. So we wanted to put our magazine productions on them. We wanted to put our Toon Boom on them. So we have some of our animation departments use Harmony and use that as the database back and forth. And it kind of came a little bit later, but we also wanted to put our Telestream transcoders on them to see how well they could perform. Beyond that, we needed storage that could support mixed connections. We're a Mac and PC shop that everybody uses SMB. Linux stuff comes and pops up, and NFS has been a big thing that we've wanted to use for the Macs and Linux. I have completely kind of walked away from NFS in other companies, not because it's not a great technology. It's fantastic technology. However, it's a bit tricky on some platforms and trying to manage that. And then some of the kind of higher things we also were looking for in storage. Oh, I missed that. And one of the other things we were looking for connections was future support. As I mentioned, we're looking at archives and we're looking at NAMs and DAMs. But the API controls of Qumulo actually said, hey, we could put some automation into this. If something can't talk directly into it, there's an API, maybe we can program for it and do that. One of the things that started adding on to this was there's no licenses for Qumulo. I mean, there's a license, that's it, there's one. There's not pay extra for small files, pay extra for quotas, pay extra for analytics. It's all there. And the analytics is also that. So we settled, small, we'll try it out. And so we got them to test it. And as anybody is, when you go to something new, you want to start something small. You want to try it out and you want to build your confidence. I was worried with them, but the day I sealed my confidence with Qumulo was the day I got a message before I even knew there was a problem, got on the train, and I got off and there's already a solution to fix it. This is the Slack channel. As the customers know, Qumulo gives you a Slack. If you don't, there's actually a Slack support you can get. It actually helps you and do that. So I got on a train and I saw this message. This was only about a month after we had these nodes running, not even. I just finished migration over a weekend, like the final migration Delta. I was making sure the magazine team was going to be on this new server, test it all out, and have them a great experience. They were coming from a Mac Pro, so just a trash can with a Thunderbolt RAID drive. And they were on this because that's what they were years ago. When we brought them in, we put them on our Isilon storage, and that just kind of melted. Like, yeah, I understand they can't handle the performance, but just it was like the omen. So with this setup, we did some testing the week before in performance. They said it looked great. It was golden, and we had our early test indicators valid. Let's go. So like I said, I got on the subway and Dan messaged me saying he's getting reports that it's going on. Found out it was something about the older cottage life files, stuff going back to the 90s, where there was a little blip on some files. In essence, we're forcing the Qumulo clusters to lock out. So like I said, he got on there, they found out what was doing it, they told me what to do. They said, we can do a quick patch update, we'll update it now. And literally they knew the team wasn't fully in yet to test it, and we already had this problem solved. They never really even saw it. So that was a fantastic win for me. I was like, okay, so yeah, like that's literally what sold me, the fact that they're proactive, not reactive. I don't say, hey, I have a problem. They're like, hey, you have a problem, is what I kind of look for companies to really help me in my role. So that's kind of why I liked Qumulo. So what's next though? Well, 2020 was to be a big year. After that, we fell in. It looked good. I wanted 2020 to be big. It's now 2021. We're planning a move. So right now, Blue Ant's in the middle of moving offices from Toronto to Toronto. And this has actually allowed us to expand our cluster from 6 to 10 to help mitigate some older storage. And it's kind of fully further discuss Qumulo's role in Blue Ant in the future. As part of this, we're doing a replication. And just replicating to save the move. We'll move one node, keep it, backups, all that stuff. I was getting 3 gigabytes per second on a replication between those K144s. I've never seen those speeds before on our network. And, some people have faster networks. Our network's not top tier. It's not a Lambo, but it's a pretty good humming Honda Civic. So we were getting literally 24 gigabits per second between the 2 nodes. And that literally floored me. I was told it might take 2 weeks to finish the replication. It took 3 days. Going beyond that, as we get bigger in animation, we use right now Harmony Toon Boom on site. But, hearing Brandon talk and other people's in the past, we want to leverage Qumulo and all these technologies to improve render times. Sure, we render locally, but, we're using Shift, as they talked about, to shift corporate backups to S3 and put lifecycle rules on it. What's stopping us from using Shift to send up assets, run it through different renderers, shift our Telestream stuff up there, use Telestream Cloud Port? That's what the things that we're looking for in the future. I'm waiting for them to have something to bring the data back to Blue Ant. Like right now it backs it up, but it'd be great to have something to pull it back. And then my personal pipe dream is kind of replacing our TerraBlock Facilis from the editing network. This is it's getting old now. We replaced ISIS with it, but understanding what Qumulo can do and the performance behind it, that's our pipe dream. And that's it. And I feel like I rambled, but thank you. And I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And you did not ramble. That was a lot of very valuable, insightful information. And so thank you so much for sharing again your experience of why you guys chose Qumulo and how you're leveraging us. And we do have one more exciting customer testimonial from Robert at Atomic Cartoons. Robert, are you all ready to go?
As ready as I'll ever be, Lindsay.
Excellent. Love it. All right. I'll hand it over to you then.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So yeah, I'm Robert Crowther. I'm the IT manager for Atomic Cartoons. To give you a bit of an idea of who we are, we're across 3 different locations. Our headquarters are in Vancouver. We have a studio in LA and we have a studio in Ottawa. We work on primarily kids cartoons. We have done some like Rick and Morty commercials here and there, so that's always been a little bit of fun. But we've done shows like Last Kids on Earth. We've done the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, things like that. So a good mixture of CG and 2D work. So going between software packages like Maya and Photoshop and Toon Boom Harmony and Storybook Pro, things like that. So yeah, I manage the infrastructure between all 3 of those locations with the different teams at each location. And when we were looking at getting more storage, we decided to take a look at what the other options were than what we already had. And our objectives at the time, what we were looking for was minimal downtime, which also means reliability and speed. So our key challenges that we were facing with our current storage was upgrades, where they were taking anywhere between, or at least what they told us it was going to take, was about 8.5 to 24.7 hours. And during that entire time, our storage would not be usable. And so anybody that's in the production space knows that's pretty hard to get that amount of time across multiple productions and shows that are in progress. We also need to see the throughput during peak, during peak hours and during like high storage usage. We were having issues in the past where, you know, there was a show that was doing more rendering, and once they started hitting more rendering, people started realizing that the storage was getting, you know, slower and slower. They couldn't check out their assets as fast. You know, if we were doing like an archival, everybody in the studio felt it. And then, yeah, so getting those visibility to IO hotspots and storage usage was also key, as because, you know, at the moment we're using, or we were using Insight IQ from EMC Isilon, but that would only generate every 2 days. So either your data set was 2 days old, or if it just, you know, just got off the press, off doing its job, technically it's now out of date because it's been, you know, files change very, very quick. So if you don't mind clicking the next one for me, Jessica, that'd be great. Thank you. So the benefits. Qumulo has helped out Atomic in so many regards. It's going to be hard to just keep it kind of to this list. So the upgrades are lightning fast. I know, I believe it was Brian that was mentioning it. You know, versus our current or our old infrastructure where it was taking, you know, 8.5 to 24.7 hours to do an upgrade. We're doing upgrades in 10 seconds. Like, I think I literally stopwatches and our account manager asks me every time. But we only had an 8-second disconnect from a couple versions ago when I did an upgrade over a weekend, which, you know, as I wish I had that sailboat from the image to go to on the weekends, but I got a lot of free time back. The support team is incredibly active and fast. Like Kyle was saying, you know, there's that Slack channel. I put Qumulo support as the benchmark for every other vendor that we deal with now. They're always incredibly responsive. They always have the right people to answer the right questions. If someone's on there that doesn't know the answer, they'll just add somebody into the Slack channel and be like, hey, you know, person, what's, you know, do you know what the answer is for these guys? And I've seen that multiple times. The documentation is like second to none. I still get, you know, knowledge base articles and whatnot from our past vendor that end up in 404 error codes because, you know, it's moved or, you know, it's not applicable anymore and they've just removed it. But, you know, I'm still getting like old documentation for this. And I've never had the issue where I've asked a question and they go, oh, that's just how it is. Like every person on the support team explains exactly why something might run the way it is. I remember there's even a time when there was a Windows update that broke SMB functionality for the Qumulo. Once we identified what it was, we had uninstalled that update from our domain controllers, told Qumulo what it was. And I think within an hour they had had their internal teams test it, confirm that was the issue, and sent a notification to everybody saying like, hey, this is an issue, we'll have a patch for you in hopefully a day. And they did. Within a day, they had a new patch to fix that latest thing or issue from Windows Update, and everybody was back online. It's honestly very, very impressive. The live metrics for throughput hotspots, storage usage, and more, like as they were showing in the demo, that is incredibly key for us. Especially when I'm doing updates over the weekend, I can log in and see how much the storage is being used, who's using it. There have been times where I've just messaged an artist and been like, hey, it looks like you're the only one that's like really working, you know, on this Sunday at 6 p.m. for whatever reason. Let's, you know, you might see a quick storage disconnect for literally 8 seconds. So just don't save anything for the next minute and you'll be good. And they're fine. Being able to see, you know, how our renders from a render farm are actually hitting the storage is incredibly key, and it's all live. None of it's, you know, you're not waiting 2 days for these reports. You know, the fast development features and they're always interested in feedback. When we first got the Qumulo cluster, Amazon Shift, or sorry, the Qumulo Shift for S3 was just becoming a thing. It was about to be released. And we had a meeting to talk about it. And we said, this is how Atomic Cartoons would like to kind of use this feature. Can we get some like feature requests in there? And like, yeah, these are great ideas. And we had another meeting just to go like over that with the actual team. We know it wasn't, as much as I love our account manager, it was great to have, the technical side there as well. It'd be like, yeah, like this is like what we can do. This is the kind of time frame. We're going to take your notes and we're going to run with it. It's fantastic to see that for, an IT perspective, gain the fast development of features and fast fixes as well. I'm able to be completely confident in feedback for our production teams and for management. If they ask me, why are we using so much storage? I can just, send them the link to our Qumulo and say, with the permissions that we've set up, you have view only, take a look. This is live. And like with those live images as well, seeing what's currently being accessed, maybe something that's not, and that's taking up a lot of storage. So they have that ability to take a look. We've never had to say to production, well, that's ice, or that's Qumulo. We have to say, well, that's Isilon for a few things where we've had a few weird blips or issues or node reboots. And they just go, oh yeah, okay. I haven't had to say that with Qumulo. I honestly also have to spend less time monitoring storage. I'm not worried about alerts coming in and disks failing and then taking literally 56 emails just to get a disk replaced, which is something very basic. I know that the Qumulo guys have our back. Like Kyle had mentioned, there's been scenarios as well where they've proactively saw something, messaged the Slack channel, had a solution ready for us, and it's just gone. And it's just like, great, I don't have to worry about it. Like if there is an issue, I know that if I see it first, I can let the Qumulo guys know, and they'll work with me to get it resolved as fast as possible. If I don't notice it first, they'll let us know, and they'll provide the same amazing support. And then lastly, happy artists equals happier IT. I don't have artists that are ticked coming to me being like, hey, like it's taking forever to check out my shot. I don't have to say like, I'm sorry, but we have to do the archival, or I'm sorry, we have to do some deletion that's taking up all the storage, or I'm sorry, our storage is almost full. I know you're trying to delete stuff, but because the storage is slow, it's also slow at deleting stuff. So that's, kind of doing its own problem. So yeah, artists that are on the new Qumulo storage are complaining less, and that means that everybody's happier, including IT. And I think that's everything for me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Robert. That was wonderful. We sincerely appreciate both you and Kyle for taking the time to be here today and share your experiences with Qumulo. It's absolutely invaluable. So now we are entering into the final session of Qonnect. We'll be testing your knowledge on today's event and playing another round of Kahoot to finish off the day. As a reminder, join in using a web browser on your mobile device or desktop. Don't worry about the app. And once there, enter in the number code on the screen and you're all set. This one is a little bit different than the first one. We've got an Oculus Rift up for grabs with a first place winner. So that will definitely be a good one to get if you get top score. So yes, we'll give another couple seconds for everyone to join, and then we will get the ball rolling here. All right. Great, getting a lot of participants on here. All right. I'm laughing. My other panelists are telling me to do a dad joke or two because that's what I'm known for at the company. So I'll do at least one while we get the last few people joining to get in on the prizes. Oh, this will be a good one. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I have to say I never buy pre-shredded cheese because I just believe that doing it yourself is great. So That's a good dad joke for you. All right, I think we've got a good pool of participants here. Excellent, let's get started. Question 1. What does the sidecar functionality do for Qumulo? Select your answer now. So we've got 7 seconds. So adds user to the cluster, allows monitoring and alerting, allows you to ride shotgun or bring the cluster online. And you're correct. Blue answer allows monitoring. Great job, JBG. Question 2, what type of deployment tools were used to natively automate the Qumulo cluster in AWS? Your hands and feet, AWS console, cloud formation templates, or Terraform? Select your answer now. Got about 9 seconds. All right. Cloud formation templates. Got a new leader there. Okay. What type of protocol access does Qumulo support? NFS and SMB, NFS, SMB, or HTTP? Excellent work, everyone. You all got it. And we are on to question 4. If you wanted to see which client was consuming the most amount of resources on a cluster, where would you look? The client analytics page, the integrated analytics, the Qumulo dashboard, or CloudWatch console? Select your answer now, and you've got about 10 seconds. Client analytics page. All right, we have our 3rd place here. 2nd place, Matt. And first we have Glenn. Congratulations to the winners. Like I already mentioned, you'll be receiving some great prizes. So thanks again for the participation, and be on the lookout after the event for those. All right, so on behalf of everyone here at Qumulo, even the Grumquats, thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the entire program. And don't forget to reach out to your local Qumulo team for a live demo or a follow-up session. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, we always look forward to hearing from you. And if you don't know who your local team is, don't fret. Send an email over to info@qumulo.com, and we'll be happy to get you squared away. So this is Lindsay Winthrop signing off from Seattle. Thank you again for attending Qonnect, and be well.